You know, when you really stop and think about what a teacher does every day, I mean, crafting lessons, guiding all those students, actually shaping the future, it's huge. It's not just a job.
No, definitely not. It's a massive undertaking.
And that kind of naturally leads to this really important question.
Yeah.
How content are teachers, really, in their roles?
Yeah.
And, what are the ripple effects of that?
Absolutely. It's easy to kind of overlook teacher well-being, isn't it? But it's probably not just some nice-to-have thing.
Right.
It likely has real, tangible consequences, not just for the teachers, obviously, but, crucially, for the students they're with day in, day out.
Exactly.
So today we're going to dig into some pretty significant research that really shines a light on this connection.
And the source for this deep dive, it's quite comprehensive. It's a meta-analysis and systematic review. The title is Satisfied and High Performing, a meta-analysis and systematic review of the correlates of teachers' job satisfaction.
Bit of a mouthful.
It is. It's from the Educational Psychology Review. And what's really striking, I think, is the scale. It pulled together findings from, get this, 105 different studies.
Wow, 105. That's a lot of data.
A massive amount.
Right. So our mission today really is to unpack all that information for you. We want to understand the sort of real-world links between a teacher's job satisfaction and, well, key parts of their professional life.
Like whether they stick around.
Yeah, things like turnover, definitely. Also the quality of their interactions with students, and even, how motivated those students are and how well they do academically.
So this is kind of a shortcut to understanding this whole complex area.
That's the idea, a direct route into this really vital topic.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What exactly do these researchers mean by job satisfaction? We hear that term all the time, but what's the core idea here?
Okay, so at its heart, the study defines it as basically an attitude, a teacher's attitude towards their job.
An attitude.
Yeah, and it comes from a thinking process, like a cognitive evaluation of the different parts of their work.
So thinking about whether their needs are being met, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Are my needs being met at work?
Yeah.
Is there a fair balance between, the effort I put in and what I get back?
Yeah.
Rewards, recognition, that stuff.
So it's more than just like, did I have a good Monday or a bad Tuesday?
Precisely. I mean, emotions obviously play a part in overall well-being, right? But job satisfaction, in this context, is more about that considered judgment, that sort of overall appraisal of the job.
The bigger picture.
Yeah, the
Okay.
bigger picture. It's a specific cognitive piece of their well-being. It's distinct from those fleeting emotions, even though they're definitely connected.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the study also mentions different facets of job satisfaction. What are those? What are the key areas they looked at?
Right. Think of facets as like different angles or dimensions that add up to the overall feeling. They talk about four main categories.
Okay.
First, the nature of the work itself. The actual teaching, the curriculum,
Yeah.
what they do.
The core job.
The core job. Second, context factors. This is stuff like leadership quality, how much autonomy they have, the general school environment.
The vibe of the place.
Kind is, yeah. Third is rewards, recognition, pay, benefits. And fourth, the social side relationships with colleagues, administrators, even parents sometimes.
And did the study suggest some of these are more critical for teachers than others?
Well, the initial evidence they synthesized suggests that for teachers, the nature of work, the actual teaching part, and the context, the school environment, often seem to be particularly influential, key drivers.
Interesting.
But it's important to remember both that overall general job satisfaction and satisfaction with these specific bits, they're both important. They can tell us slightly different things.
Right. You need both the big picture and the details. Okay, so we have a decent handle on what teacher job satisfaction is. Now, the crucial question, how does it actually play out? How does it affect what happens in the school? Is there a theory connecting satisfaction and, well, performance?
Absolutely. The study goes into something called affective events theory. It basically lays out two main pathways for how this link might work.
Two pathways, okay.
The first one is cognition-driven behavior,
Yeah.
thinking-driven. The idea is pretty straightforward, really.
Okay.
If a teacher is satisfied, they like their job, they naturally want to keep things that way.
Right.
They maintain that positive situation.
Sure, makes sense.
So they're less likely to think about quitting, less likely to be absent. It boosts their motivation, makes them more engaged. They're invested because, well, they value what they have.
Okay, that's pretty intuitive. What's the second pathway?
The second one is affect-driven behavior, emotion-driven. This suggests satisfaction is linked to positive emotions, feeling good about the job.
Right.
And these positive emotions, the theory goes, kind of broaden your thinking. They help build personal resources, make you better at solving problems, even improve executive functions, those higher-level thinking skills.
So feeling good literally helps you think better and do the job better.
That's the idea. It enhances cognitive resources, problem solving,
Oh,
all leading to better performance.
wow.
And look, this isn't just some abstract theory for teaching. General research across loads of different jobs consistently shows job satisfaction links to, well, a whole bunch of good stuff.
Like what?
Higher productivity, lower staff turnover. That's a big one. Better attendance, more pro-social behavior, like helping colleagues,
Right.
more engagement, more commitment, and even, interestingly, fewer health problems reported.
That's a pretty compelling list. So how does all this translate specifically to teaching? How did this study define professional performance for a teacher?
Good question. So for teaching performance, they looked at a few key things. First, those general indicators we mentioned, turnover intentions, thinking about leaving, and absenteeism, which is like, physical withdrawal,
Checking out.
kind of.
Mm-hmm.
But then, really importantly, they focused on the core tasks of teaching itself,
Like lesson delivery.
more like creating effective learning environments. That involves things like positive teacher-student interactions, boosting student motivation, and ultimately how well they actually facilitate student learning.
Okay. And those teacher-student interactions, what were the key elements they looked at there?
They broke it down into three main areas. First was emotional support.
Okay.
That's creating that supportive classroom atmosphere,
Mm-hmm.
meeting students' academic, social, and emotional needs. Really crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Second, classroom management. Keeping things running smoothly, maximizing learning time, setting rules, managing disruptions proactively. The basics, but essential.
Definitely.
And third, instructional support. This is about the teaching strategies themselves, how teachers spark interest, motivate students, push them towards higher order thinking.
Right. Those all sound fundamental to good teaching. What about the student side? How did they define student motivation and achievement?
Okay, so student motivation was described as that inner drive, what fuels students' actions, their choices, how much effort they put in.
What makes them want to learn?
Exactly. They touch on theories like self-determination, feeling competent and in control, and expectancy value, believing you can succeed, and seeing the value in the task. And student achievement. That was more straightforward. Basically, how much knowledge and skills students gain from instruction, often measured by, grades and test scores.
Got it. So how does the teacher's own satisfaction, theoretically at least, connect to all of that? Their interactions, student motivation, student achievement?
Well, they talk about something called the pro-social classroom model. The idea is that the teacher's well-being directly influences the quality of your interactions with students.
Okay.
And it's those positive interactions that then help students feel more motivated and, down the line, achieve more.
So it's like a chain reaction.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Satisfied teachers are thought to maybe invest more in planning, be better equipped to handle the inevitable classroom challenges.
Mm.
They just have more cognitive and emotional resources for the students.
More energy, maybe.
More energy, more enthusiasm probably too, which can be infectious, right? Benefiting interactions and student outcomes. Plus, just practically, if satisfied teachers are absent less often,
Consistency.
that consistency has to help student learning. And, importantly, they note it can work both ways.
Ah, so success with students could boost the teacher's satisfaction.
Exactly. Seeing students thrive, having positive relationships that can feed back and make teachers feel better about their jobs too, it's potentially reciprocal.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense theoretically. So we've set the stage. Now let's get to the main event, the findings. What did this huge meta-analysis looking at all 105 studies actually find about these links?
Right, the results. This is where it gets really interesting. They crunched the numbers, and the results are pretty informative. First off, a significant negative link between job satisfaction and turnover intentions.
Meaning happier teachers are less likely to want to leave.
Precisely. The correlation they found was mighty 0.46. That's a moderate to strong relationship. So the clear message there is, satisfied teachers are significantly less likely to be thinking about quitting.
That's a huge point, especially with concerns about teacher shortages.
Absolutely. It underlines the importance of satisfaction for retention.
Okay. What about absenteeism? How often they're actually out of the classroom?
Also a significant negative link there. A bit weaker, the correlation was mighty as 0.18, but still statistically significant.
So more satisfied teachers tend to be absent less often.
That's what the data suggests, yeah. Which, again, points to consistency for students.
Right. Both of those make intuitive sense. What about the more positive outcomes? Teacher-student interactions, student motivation, achievement.
Okay, here the links were generally smaller, but consistently positive.
Positive but smaller.
Yes. When they look at specific aspects of teacher-student interactions, they found small positive correlations. It was 0.14 for emotional support, 0.18 for classroom management, and 0.10 for instructional support.
Quite small for instructional support.
It was. When they looked at a more general measure of teacher-student interactions, the link was a bit stronger, 0.28.
Okay, so still positive. What does that suggest overall?
It suggests that, on average, teachers who report higher job satisfaction do seem to foster more positive, supportive learning environments. They score higher on these interaction measures.
And the impact on students themselves.
Yeah.
Motivation and achievement.
Right. For student motivation, they found a positive link of 0.29. So students taught by more satisfied teachers tend to be perceived as more motivated.
Perceived by whom? The teachers.
Often, yes, though sometimes by students or observers, too. We'll come back to that point about raters later. It's important.
Okay. And finally, achievement. The bottom line, grades and scores.
There, the link was positive but small again, 0.10.
Just 0.10. That seems quite low compared to the others.
It is the smallest link, yeah. And the researchers suggest that might be because achievement is kind of downstream. Satisfaction impacts interactions, which impacts motivation, which then impacts achievement. So a direct link might naturally be weaker.
A longer causal chain, maybe?
Potentially. But importantly, they did run checks, psychometric meta-analysis to account for measurement errors. And these general findings mostly held up. So the connections seem real, even if some are small.
Okay. Did the study look into whether specific types of satisfaction mattered more? Like, is satisfaction with pay more important than satisfaction with colleagues, for example?
They tried to look at that using those facets we talked about, but they ran into a limitation. Not many of the original 105 studies actually measured satisfaction in that detailed way and linked it to all these outcomes.
Ah, okay.
But for turnover intentions, where they did have enough data, they found something interesting.
What was that?
Satisfaction with the nature of the work itself, satisfaction with colleagues, and satisfaction with those context factors like leadership, all showed moderate and quite similar negative links to wanting to leave.
So it wasn't like one thing stood out hugely above the others for predicting quitting.
Not in their analysis for turnover intentions, no. It suggests that being unhappy with different aspects of the job can all contribute, maybe somewhat equally, to that desire to leave. It's not just one single thing for everyone.
That's useful to know. Now, you mentioned 105 studies. I imagine the results weren't all identical. Did the researchers explore why the results might vary from study to study, these moderator?
Yes, absolutely. They found quite a bit of variation, what they call heterogeneity, between the studies. So they dug into potential reasons using meta-regression.
What did they find?
A few things popped out. Publication year, for instance. The link between satisfaction and general teacher-student interactions seems stronger in more recent studies.
Oh, interesting. Why might that be?
Hard to say, for sure. Maybe better measures over time. More focus on interactions. The flip side was the link with turnover intentions seemed to decrease slightly over time. They also found that published studies, ones in journals, tended to show stronger effects for instructional support and general teacher-student interactions compared to unpublished ones, like dissertations.
Okay, maybe a publication bias hint there. We'll come back to that. What else?
A really big one was the rater perspective. Who provided the data?
Ah, yes, you mentioned this earlier.
It mattered quite a bit. For absenteeism, the negative link was stronger when they used official school records versus teachers just self-reporting their absences.
Makes sense. Records are probably more objective.
Probably.
Ah.
But conversely, for general teacher-student interactions, the positive link was stronger when teachers rated themselves compared to when students or observers did the rating.
Okay, so self-reports might inflate that link a bit.
Potentially. Same pattern for student motivation. The link with teacher satisfaction was stronger when teachers reported on their students' motivation levels themselves.
That's a really important caveat for interpreting these numbers. Self-report bias is real.
It is. They also found some influence from grade level taught the links with instructional and general interactions varied between, say, elementary and high school teachers. And even the proportion of female teachers in the sample seemed to matter for the general interaction link.
Wow, so.
The correlation was smaller in samples with more female teachers. And teacher experience also moderated some relationships, turnover intentions, interactions, student motivation.
Wow, so it's not just one simple connection. It depends on a lot of factors.
Exactly. It's complex, and how you measure things, especially performance, seems really critical.
What about studies that looked at this over time? Longitudinal studies. Did they shed any more light?
They did look at the few longitudinal studies available. These generally supported the findings from the cross-sectional ones, the snapshots, especially for turnover intentions and student motivation.
But maybe not as strongly for other things.
The links weren't always as robust, no. And crucially, even these longitudinal studies didn't really nail down causality.
Right. Still hard to say if satisfaction causes better outcomes, or if success causes satisfaction, or if it's a cycle.
Precisely. That directionality question and the potential for reciprocal effects wasn't fully resolved by the studies they reviewed.
Okay. And you mentioned publication bias earlier. Did they find evidence of that?
They did look for it using standard methods like funnel plots and statistical tests. Their analysis suggested there might be some publication bias for instructional support, general teacher-student interactions, and student motivation.
Meaning, studies finding stronger links might have been more likely to get published?
Potentially, yes.
Uh,
It means we should be a little cautious when interpreting the exact strength of those specific correlations. They might be slightly overestimated in the published literature.
okay, good to keep in mind. So, taking all this together, the correlations, the moderators, the potential biases, how important does teacher job satisfaction really seem compared to other things we know matter for teachers, like their knowledge, their personality, their confidence?
That's a great question. The researchers actually did a rough comparison. They looked at the effect sizes they found for job satisfaction and compared them to typical effect sizes reported in other research for things like teacher personality,
Mm.
subject matter knowledge, or self-efficacy, their belief in their own abilities.
Hmm.
And their conclusion was that job satisfaction seems to be, broadly speaking, similarly important. The strength of its association with performance outcomes is in the same ballpark as these other well-studied teacher characteristics.
So it deserves to be considered alongside those other factors.
Definitely. But they also stress that what's really needed is research that looks at multiple factors simultaneously. How do satisfaction, self-efficacy, knowledge, and school context all interact? That's the next level of understanding we need.
And more longitudinal studies, too, presumably.
Absolutely. To really unpack those cause and effect questions and the dynamics over time.
You mentioned the conditions influencing the relationship. Did the analysis give strong signals about, say, specific groups of teachers where satisfaction matters more or less?
Not really signals based on demographics like gender or experience from the meta-regression itself, but the big takeaway on conditions was really about measurement, how performance is assessed. That rater perspective issue seems critical.
Right. Self-report versus objective data or observer ratings.
Exactly. And they also suggest future research really needs to consider student characteristics more. Class composition, student background, these could easily be important moderators that weren't captured consistently in the studies reviewed here.
That makes sense. The context of the students must matter. And revisiting those specific facets of satisfaction, did they find anything more about which aspects matter most for things other than just quitting?
Beyond that initial finding for turnover intentions, where work nature, colleagues, and context seem similarly important, they basically said we need more data.
More studies need to measure satisfaction in a multidimensional way.
Exactly. We need more research using detailed satisfaction measures linked to outcomes like interactions and achievement to really understand those nuances.
Yeah.
Is satisfaction with leadership more tied to classroom management? Is satisfaction with professional development linked to instructional support? We don't have clear answers yet from this review.
Okay. So clearly a valuable synthesis, this meta-analysis, but like all research, it has its limitations. What did the authors themselves flag as important caveats?
They were quite upfront about several things. First, that potential publication bias. We discussed the file drawer problem of unpublished studies potentially showing different results, even though they tried hard to find them.
Right.
Second, the variability in how job satisfaction itself was defined and measured across those 105 studies. Some used just a single question, others used detailed scales. That makes combining results tricky.
Apples and oranges.
Yeah.
A bit.
A little bit. Similarly, how performance outcomes were measured also varied. A lot different observation tools, different tests for achievement, different ways of tracking absenteeism. That limits comparability too.
Sure.
And they reiterate that because it's mainly based on correlations, it can't establish causality. We see links, but we can't definitively say from this meta-analysis that boosting satisfaction will cause X amount of improvement in interactions or achievement.
The correlation versus causation issue, always important.
Always. They also mentioned that future work could use more sophisticated techniques like model-based meta-analysis to explore these complex relationships, maybe testing that pro-social classroom model more directly.
Okay, so despite the limitations, what are the big practical takeaways for schools, for principals, maybe even for teachers thinking about their own well-being? What can we actually do with this information?
I think the main practical message is pretty clear. Promoting and supporting teacher job satisfaction looks like a worthwhile investment. It's likely beneficial across various fronts.
Because it's linked, even if complexly, to retention, interactions, and student outcomes.
Exactly. And since satisfaction stems from evaluating working conditions, the focus naturally turns to, well, improving those conditions.
What kind of conditions?
The study points towards things like school leadership quality, creating opportunities for genuine collaboration among teachers, fostering a positive overall school climate, and maybe thinking about how student composition impacts teacher workload and stress.
So system-level changes.
Yeah, interventions targeting things like workload reduction or building strong professional learning communities seem indicated. But they also acknowledge individual factors matter,
Meaning things teachers themselves can do.
or things schools can support teachers with, like training in coping strategies, developing social-emotional competencies, building self-efficacy. These individual-focused interventions could also help.
But how effective are those likely to be on their own?
That's a key point they make. Individual strategies probably work best when the overall school environment is supportive. Trying to teach coping skills in a toxic environment is, well, it's fighting an uphill battle.
Right. You need both.
Exactly. The ideal seems to be a multifaceted approach, addressing those school-level systemic factors and providing individual support where needed. That combination is probably the best bet for genuinely enhancing teacher job satisfaction.
So to kind of wrap this all up for our listeners, this deep dive into a whole lot of research really does suggest that how satisfied teachers feel about their jobs, it matters. It's connected to important things like whether they stay, how they interact with kids, and student outcomes, even if those connections vary in strength and complexity.
Yeah, it's definitely not just fluff. It's linked to the core business of schools. It's complex, multifaceted, and we definitely need more research, especially those longitudinal studies, to really tease apart the how and why.
Absolutely. Which leads us, I suppose, to a final thought for everyone listening. Considering everything we've just discussed, what do you think? What are the most impactful changes, maybe in your own school or system-wide, that could genuinely boost teacher job satisfaction and hopefully, in turn, really benefit students?
That's the big question, isn't it? Something to really chew on. Maybe even check out the original study if you want to go even deeper.
Yeah.